anger, the rage. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be taking apart these little rims. They're called split rims. They're pretty cool, so no prying necessary. They come apart in two. I mean, obviously you have to release the air from them first, otherwise it's bad news bears. Okay, so I have heard horror stories about this. People have not released the air from their tires before taking these split rims apart, and as you can imagine, it's disastrous. I don't want to be one of those statistics, so we're gonna release the air. So those feel pretty empty. Okay, we'll start with the back one. The sprocket still has to come off, and yeah, shouldn't be too hard. Looks like a couple of 12 mils. That's it. Okay, now we're going to take off the brake drum. Hopefully that's not seized. I think it's seized. 2 for 4. Doing pretty good. Oh, there we go. This one here, I need to get a wrench. I don't have enough clearance for the socket. Okay, got my wrench. It's actually a 14. I wasn't using a 15 socket, it was a 14 socket, just so you know. So for those of you who are typing furiously on your keyboard. There we go. Hub. And that's it. So now we're gonna split these. I've never done this before, so we'll see how it goes. That's another 14. I hope that some of these bolts aren't seized. That tends to happen, obviously, with bolts that are exposed. They get rusted and it gets very difficult to separate them. So in some cases you have to apply some lubrication or sometimes some heat or just brute force. This looks like a 12, and I'm assuming that's a 14. So on these rims we've got a nut that's on a bolt. So you have to make sure you hold both sides. Obviously, if you spin one side, the other side's just gonna spin on you and you're not gonna get any traction. Ratchet with the 12 mil holding that side, and we're gonna take the socket and remove the nut from the bolt. Not seized. Pretty good. The bike from 1978. All right, bolts, nuts, everything's off. And because it's called a split rim, you'd think it would split right apart for us, but I think it still requires a little bit of finagling. I guess I'll need to get a pry bar.
Working?
No, it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to organize my nuts and bolts before I lose track of everything. Not a glamorous part of bike building, but very necessary. You always want to keep your nuts and bolts organized because you don't know when you're going to get back to putting something back together. Even if your intentions are like, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'm going to put everything back tomorrow, shit happens. And if it happens to be tomorrow, fine. If it happens to be 6 months, a year later, you want to know what your past self was thinking, right? And the worst is when you have extra bolts left over. And you're like, where did this come from? And how much of my bike do I now have to take apart to put these back on wherever they go? So always label your hardware. The anger, the rage. Maybe we should cut for a bit while I figure this out. So that did not go as planned. I was told it would be a lot easier than that was. With the split rims, I guess it's a hit or miss whether or not they come apart. In this case, the rubber has basically sealed itself to the steel on the inside bead. So we're just gonna chop it off. That's why we have this guy here. Protect your face. All right, let's do this. I just want to see it. Oh yeah, that's a whole lot of rust in there. This is a stubborn rubber. Okay. This is obviously a little overkill to get very close to the rim, so I'm going to use a Dremel from here. It might take forever, but you're going to see. I'm just going to cut the tube out. Let's get it out of my way. This is what we're working with. Look at all that rust. Oh yeah, there's no way that would have ever come off. It's crazy. It's like the rubber has basically welded itself to the steel. So now we use a Dremel to cut the rest. It's just not cut through. It's hard to get in there tight without hitting the steel with the other side of the radius. But we'll keep going. Okay. No, man. No, ma'am. But it's so sealed that it won't even peel off with this leverage now. Can you see this steel belt? Cut through that. You should have an easier time peeling it away once that's split, but you also don't want to cut into the rim, so there's that risk as well. Oh. We did it. Oh, there you go. How do you like them apples? It's cool. It's hard to tell when you've stopped cutting the belt and now you're cutting the rim, because it sounds the same. There we go. Two. So eventually we'll get these sandblasted. I'll probably leave them the bare steel. With the CX we've got laced wheels, which obviously we're not doing that on the ponycorn. I mean, we could if I really wanted to, and if I felt very ambitious, we could paint the outside rim black, which is what the CX has, and then leave the center part steel, which would kind of give it that look, but we'll figure it out.
Thanks for watching. Isn't this episode kind of like life? Sometimes the things that you think are the easiest to do turns out to be the most unexpectedly difficult things to do. I hope you continue with our journey. Subscribe, and there'll be more episodes coming down the pike as she continues building her Honda Z50.